Good evening. This is the NewsTrack and I'm Marya Shakil. There has been some important moves on the trade front. India and the United States have included a marathon 7-hour round of positive talks in New Delhi, signaling renewed momentum in what could become a game-changing trade deal. With top US negotiator Brendan Lynch in town and Indian officials pushing hard on key sectors, the stage is being set for the crucial sixth round of formal negotiations. Tariffs, tech and market access are all on the table. Will this be the breakthrough that both sides are hoping for is the big question. We are starting with some piece of breaking news which is just coming in, and this is with regards to what the sources in the government are telling us. The indication from the government is that the discussions were positive and forward-looking. Government sources say that talks covered various aspects of the trade deal and efforts are on for early conclusion of trade talks. And the US team was led by Assistant Trade Representative Mr. Brendan Lynch, who is seen as the chief negotiator. Karishma Sudani joins us live. Karishma, when we say that talks are going in a positive direction, what does it actually mean? And where do we go from here onwards? What happens next after Mr. Lynch goes back to Washington?
Marya, when we're talking about trade talks being positive, as what the Commerce Ministry has said in a release today, it is evident of the fact that the deadlock of July now breaks, which means that it is well expected that the next round of negotiation, which is going to be the sixth round of negotiation, that is going to very soon, in fact, happen between India and United States of America. And if you notice very clearly, the press statement also mentions of the fact that they're looking to soon lock the bilateral trade agreement. Let's get back to understanding. We were looking to seal the deal by fall end, and if we count, it's just going to be from weeks now. So we should still be hopeful of the fact that if the negotiations resume soon, maybe in few days or weeks, then we could actually have a deal probably within a month or two if everything is mutually agreed. Of course, our sticking points remain. India is careful and cautious of the fact that it does not want to do away with its sensitive sectors, and majorly, importantly, on the punitive tariffs that have come on us because of our dependence on Russian oil. These are the two major sticking points of contention of discussion, which the next round of negotiation will look into.
Karishma, when we say next round of negotiations, when is that likely? And who will be participating in that? Because the indication from the government is that perhaps the Commerce Minister could travel to Washington for that next round with the Treasury Secretary.
Marya, while sources have given an air of optimism on the fact that the next round of negotiation could happen very soon, there is no certain date that has yet been given. I think this is also procedural of the fact that after today's meeting, it's the officials in Washington who will also be debriefed tomorrow on what has happened, and the Commerce Department will also be debriefed by the chief negotiator tomorrow. And maybe in about this week, we should learn of more information on when the next negotiation meeting will happen. But owing to the fact that we have escalated this, if we see in the last 12 to 15 days, there has been a lot of escalation in terms of trade conversations or subject related to trade between India and between Delhi and Washington, with Donald Trump, President Donald Trump emphasizing on the fact that he shares a stronger bond with India, and also Prime Minister Narendra Modi giving an optimistic reply to that.
That's right.
Now Washington's White House trade advisor also saying that India is back on the talking table. I think there is some escalation definitely going on behind the doors when it comes to the trade talks of both the countries.
Okay, so the timeline that the two sides are looking at is possible that these talks should conclude by November. Appreciate your time here, Karishma. Joining me on the show tonight, Jayant Krishna, Shankar Iyer and Alexander Slater will be joining me in just a bit. Jayant Krishna, with US Assistant Secretary and someone who is seen as the chief negotiator in Delhi, Do you see the positive and forward-looking tone from both the sides as a genuine pivot, or is it more of a diplomatic posture given the steep 50% US tariffs on Indian exports?
See, Marya, it's very difficult to say, because our relationship has seen too many ups and downs in the last couple of months. If you look at, India and Brazil are the only countries on whom 50% tariff has been levied. There's no other country, even China, which imports more crude oil from Russia than India. I think their levy is just about 30%, right? So I think, but today the discussions which happened, I think both sides said that these are not the round six for whatever reasons, but as a prelude to round six. I think both Brendan Lynch and Rajesh Agrawal, have issued positive statements after the meeting. I am hopeful, but one can't lose sight of the fact what different people have said in the past few months, including President Trump, including we have been said that we are India is oil money a laundromat for Kremlin, all kinds of things. We are a failed economy. President Trump has said that he has lost India and Russia to the dark, deep China. All kinds of statements have been made. But I think let that be the past. And I'm an optimist. I believe that there is a lot of mutuality in the relationship. And last 25 years of solid investment by 3 Indian prime ministers and 4 American presidents, ironically, including President Trump in his first innings. Whatever has been made in the relationship, the investment has been made in the relationship to take it to a strategic level. I think, I hope that prevails. And the fact that US wants, an increased access to Indian markets. We are the most populous country in the world. We are one of the best possible alternate supply chain destinations for manufacturing after China. Our diaspora is so strong. And above all, I think India is the best country which will be able to address the extreme economic aggression that China has been saying.
Yes.
So I think at last some wise sense seems to be prevailing. And I'm hopeful and optimist that, in next couple of months' time, if not earlier, we will have, if not a full-blown FTA, which is anyway not being talked about, but at least a bilateral trade agreement.
Okay, so not really an FTA, but a bilateral trade agreement is the sense that is coming in from Jayant Krishna. Shankar Iyer, how critical is the removal of the additional 25% tariff, which is linked to India's Russian oil imports, to any meaningful progress here? And what leverage does India realistically hold in this context?
Well, it's the principal stumbling block, isn't it? The fact that a 25% penalty has been imposed on India for importing Russian crude, when the US itself imports uranium from Russia, the EU continues to import gas and oil from Russia. Japan and Indonesia have entered into new trade agreements for exploration and import of crude. So this is something that was done in the hope that, President Trump is looking for a geopolitical realignment or deal. And India is looking for a trade deal. And that gulf has to be understood. President Trump believes that by pushing India, he will get President Putin to the negotiating table on the Ukraine war.
That's right.
Now, these are imponderables that cannot be sort of sorted out. The fact remains that President Trump campaigned on being harsh on China, and China is nowhere. It's the largest importer of Russian crude, and there's no sign of any penal duty on them. And that is because they have the leverage. So they tried to impose a ban on investments. The US tried to impose a ban on semiconductors. China yesterday brought out a new anti-competition thing against NVIDIA. They have blocked minerals exports to the US. So that is at a different level. India has to think out of the box to come out of this. So if the US is looking for a trade deal, we have to look what India wants. For instance, in the agri area, it's not a
What could be this out of the box thinking then, Shankar Iyer?
well, the simple thing is that President Trump is trying to address some demand issues in the US economy. For instance, corn and soya. India is trying to address some demand issues, which is basically oilseeds, pulses, and other things. The US always seems to be happy. President Trump has gone on and on and on and on about how the EU is going to invest money, Japan is going to invest money, the Gulf countries are investing money, although there is no, I mean, these are all hopeful statements or at least declarations. So India could offer, I mean, I'm just thinking out of the box and say that, okay, we will take up some agri land there. 48 million hectares of US agricultural land is owned by foreigners. Let India own some of this land. Let India produce some of the oil seeds. Let India produce some of the pulses in the US area. And we have it as exports. We have shortfall of urea just now. Maybe we could import urea. Those are the kind of things that you have to offer to President Trump. He is
Americans.
looking for a headline. He is looking for a headline.
Okay, okay. Alexander Slater, do you then expect these resumed talks to yield a comprehensive trade deal soon, or will progress remain incremental and perhaps even hostage to tariff rollbacks?
Thanks so much for having me on today. It's good to be here. The initial, let me put it this way, today's round of discussions have recently concluded, and both sides have come out and said very positive things, that they will intensify their interactions and recommence the official discussions for a sixth round of trade talks. So I would expect that you will see an Indian delegation come to the U.S. Shortly to commence those activities. This is a good sign. It means that we're getting back on track to where things were prior to the fissure that emerged in full-blown form in August, even as it had been building since May. In terms of what we're likely to see out of that, I think it's going to be centered on the agreement that was made, let's say, the draft agreement that had reached President Trump's desk in July, and that ultimately he rejected. But I do think that there appears to be ways forward where both sides would lower their demands in the agricultural sector and their red lines, so that there could be a way to give the U.S. some access to the Indian agricultural market in a way that is tolerable to domestic constituencies in India. So again, I think we're close to an incremental deal. Again, this isn't a free trade agreement, as you said, but we're close.
Okay, but Mr. Slater, do you get the sense that even the White House is now approaching these trade talks with some caution? You know, in the last few weeks, the manner in which there was almost like a statement a day on Truth Social by the president and his entire administration, very, very harsh words from Indian economy being dead to India, in fact, fueling the Russian war. There is now some kind of revisit which is happening in the White House with regards to this trade deal.
I don't think that there's a revisit in the sense of negativity towards it. I think that both sides, India and the United States, are eager to move forward with the trade agreement. The idea that the United States would not want to proceed with an agreement that is going to reduce tariffs on U.S. exports to India significantly, which is what is in the draft agreement right now, the idea that the United States wouldn't want to proceed with that doesn't make sense to me. So I think the United States is very much in favor of moving forward with the draft agreement that the United States and India have put together, with some changes.
Okay, my revisit was essentially on the manner in which there was this public display of acrimony playing out from the side of Washington towards India. Is there a rethink that is visible now in the Trump administration, that they have to understand that trade talks happen at the talking table? It cannot be about public display of anguish, the manner in which Donald Trump and his key leaders, advisors, Peter Navarro and others were doing.
So I think there is a general agreement and understanding now in the White House that in order for trade talks to go forward with India, political space has to be there for India to engage. and that the impact of President Trump's negative statements that you have outlined were to shrink that space, that it basically made it impossible for Prime Minister Modi and India's trade negotiators to talk.
Okay.
Obviously, they've increased leverage here with the reciprocal tariffs and then the oil tariffs, pardon me. And so there's going to have to be some progress there too, because I do think at some point Prime Minister Modi is going to need to show some progress there in order for the trade talks to come to fruition.
Okay. Jayant Krishna, given India's steadfast refusal to curb its Russian oil imports despite major penalties, how long can India really then sustain this stance without really derailing broader US trade relations?
So, Marya, I have a feeling India buys so much of crude oil from Russia, not because of any love for that country. Of course, we have had historically good relationship with that country, and it started with the USSR, and then finally, those were subsumed when Russia came as a country. But the fact is, we buy from there because they sell us at almost 20% lower than the prevalent rates, So, let other countries come forward and give us those rates, Because by going to other countries at the normal rates and not the deep discounted rates at which Russia sells crude oil to India, why would India, increase its import bill? And that, if it's not gets compensated through other means, would directly hit our fiscal deficit, So I think India would not do it. But over a period of time, I think, one should not lay all eggs in one basket. Almost 40% of our crude oil we buy from one country. I think it will be a good, import diversification strategy to take it from a number of other countries, including countries like Brazil, perhaps US itself, although there are issues of freight and so on and so forth. But I think India should diversify. But just because there's a pressure from the US, I don't think we should succumb to that. And India has not succumbed to that. I think India should carry on. And that's one pressure. Other is about the usual allegation that India is a tariff king and so on and so forth. India has told US time and again, while some product categories surely have a high tariff because we have to protect the interest of our farmers, our dairy entrepreneurs, our fishery entrepreneurs, and so on and so forth. But the weighted average tariff for all imports from the US, looking at the basket that we had in the last year, is just about 4.6%. And almost half the products that we import from the US, that the tariff is 5% or lower than that. So I think we have to keep dispelling that notion and start looking at other sources also. Okay. Not that we will dump Russia altogether. Till the time we have equally oil available at an equally competitive price.
All right, Jayant Krishna, Shankar Iyer, and Alexander Slater, really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us here on the NewsTrack. Now, I leave you with an exclusive conversation with Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri as he shares some key insights on the evolving India-US trade deal. What we have also seen in recent days is the message which has come from the Prime Minister that he stands for the people of India, for the Indian farmers. This is in the context of course, the ongoing trade talks. I'm speaking to you at a time, sir, when the key negotiator is here in India. How do you see the trade talks and in which direction is it going?
I am a trade negotiator, I'm a diplomat. The one lesson I've learned is never to speculate on the outcome of a negotiation whilst the negotiation is going on. What I can tell you, Marya, is that under the instruction of the Prime Minister, you will get a good outcome. Let's leave it at that. When you and I meet bilaterally or after a while and you want to talk about the trade talks, but as we speak, the negotiations are going on, and I think wisdom and maturity lies in not speculating on outcomes.
And India first is the principle with which you have entered.
That's a country's thing. But in a trade negotiation, there is always a question of negotiating. अभी ये तो होता नहीं कि मैं आपके साथ negotiate करूंगा, आपकी सारी बातें मान जाऊंगा, या आप मेरे साथ negotiate करते मेरी सारी बातें मान जाएंगे. Let's leave it at that. It will be a good outcome.
What are the sticking points you're saying?
I am not getting into that. It's not my cup of tea.
But sir, overall, the message that has come from Prime Minister Modi has been about his persona in which he will not buckle under any kind of pressure.
Let me tell you, he has a very big persona, and whatever the instructions are, the negotiators will. But I don't think it's right to speculate on this issue. I'm willing to move from here to any other issue that you want.